A long, long time ago, people began to forget the true God, the one who made heaven and earth. Instead of praying to him, they began to worship statues made of wood or stone, called idols. They believed that these idols could help them, protect them, and listen to their prayers. But they were just pieces of lifeless stone that could neither see, nor hear, nor speak. Because they turned away from God, people began to treat each other badly. They no longer cared about good or bad, and they did all kinds of unpleasant things. They lied, they argued, they behaved wickedly, and they lived only for themselves. At that time, in a city called there lived a man named Abram. Unlike others, Abram loved God and tried to live a good life, as he knew God would. Every day, Abram prayed, talked to God, and sought to do good. God saw Abram and was pleasantly impressed by his kind and faithful heart. One day, God spoke to Abram. Perhaps it was through a dream, or perhaps through a quiet voice in his heart, but the words were very clear. Abram, get out of your father's house, from your country, and go to the land that I will show you. I will bless you, and you will have a large family, and through you all the nations of the earth will be blessed. It was a difficult request. Leaving the place where you were born, leaving your friends, relatives, and everything you know is not easy. But Abram did not hesitate. He believed that God had a wonderful plan for his life. So he gathered his family, his servants, his flocks and herds, his tents and all his belongings and set off. They walked for days. They crossed rivers, climbed hills and mountains, crossed deserts, and slept under the open sky. But God was with them every step of the way. Finally, they arrived at a beautiful place, full of green pastures and shady trees. It was the land of Canaan, the place God had chosen for Abram. There, God spoke to Abram again and said, all this land that you see will be yours and your children's forever. Abram was so grateful and happy that he built an altar, a special place where he prayed and offered a sacrifice of thanksgiving to God. He never forgot to thank the Lord for all the blessings he had received. One quiet night, when the sky was full of bright stars, God called Abram out of his tent again and said, look up to the sky and try to count the stars. That's how many your children and grandchildren will be. That's how big your family will be. Abram looked up in amazement at the sky. There were so many stars that he couldn't even count them. Although he didn't have any children at the time, Abram believed God and never doubted for a moment that his promise would come true. Time passed, and God spoke to him again and said, Abram, I will give you a son. You will have a big family, a whole people, and this land will be theirs. Abram loved God and promised to be faithful to him always. He knew that the Lord always keeps his promises. That is why, even when he did not understand everything that was happening to him, Abram listened with trust. God was with Abram on all his journeys, blessed him, and later gave him a son named Isaac, even though Abram and his wife Sarah were already old. It was a miracle! Thus began the great family that God had promised. The story of Abram shows us how beautiful it is to have faith, to obey God even when you do not understand everything. God rejoices in people who love him, who are good, and who follow his will with a pure heart. You too can be like Abram, to obey God, to do good, and to trust in him every day.